Hey, welcome to The Well. My name is Tony and I'm one of the pastors here on staff. I'm so glad to welcome you here this morning. If it's your first time here joining us, I want to give you a special welcome. But if this is just part of what you do every week, you join us to gather online like this and to worship and to learn and to sing together, I'm thrilled that you're here. And here's something I don't say every week. I'm actually glad that many of you aren't here this week because I'm thrilled to say that we are actually once again finally meeting in person in all three of our sites, in Bolton, in King City, and in Vaughan. And this is the first time in a long time that we've been able to say that. So I'm just so excited that we've got people in each one of our sites gathering together today on Sunday morning to worship and to sing and to grow together in person. Now, that doesn't mean that we're planning to do away with our online services. We're going to be continuing to stream these each week, but I want to just encourage you and invite you that if you're able, join us on Sundays moving forward at any one of our sites in Bolton, in King City, and in Vaughan, and continue to grow with us. Man, we're so excited about all that lies ahead for us as our in-person services continue to grow and develop. Hopefully we hope to see more and more people come out each week. We hope to see more and more people being involved in our services in various capacities each week. And we are certainly hoping and praying that this is going to be a trend that continues to be, doors opening for us to continue to gather and grow in our gatherings, not closing as we've been experiencing. This kind of leads us into the series that we are in the second week of, and we're focusing on over the month of June, that we're calling Resilient. The last year and a bit has been really difficult for us in all sorts of different ways, and obviously this pandemic has hit all of us in various ways and has brought various and to differing degrees kind of challenges into our lives. But that's why we're talking about this series right now. We're calling it Resilient, and we're exploring and we're talking through just what does it look like for us to come through hard things, to come through difficult challenges and difficult seasons, but not to become hardened people by them. Like, how can we begin to see or grow in seeing the difficult and hard things that come into our lives actually as opportunities that God is bringing to us to change us and to make us new in some way? And so as we go into the rest of this service today, I just want to invite you to simply bring to mind some of the hard things that may be going on in your life right now. Whether it's a hard relationship, maybe it's a hard situation at work, maybe there's hard times financially that have kind of come into your life. Maybe some other difficulty, whatever it is, you know what it is, and certainly God knows. And I want you to just simply invite you to bring that into the table conversation with God this morning. Certainly when we're in weekend mode, and oftentimes even when we come to church, we kind of have this tendency to want to sort of set aside or to brush under the rug or whatever some of the difficult things that are going on in our lives, because we don't want to think about those things. We want to focus on, the fun things over the weekend, or certainly the good things that are part of like a worship service like this. But actually, this is an invitation for us to even, not just to bring those to mind, but bring them into the conversation with God and to invite Him to speak into the difficult things that may be going on in your life and to use them to make you new, to change you, to bring new things into your life, because He knows you and He wants to do what's good. And so with that, join us for the rest of the service, friends.
Church, we worship the God who was, we worship the God who is, we worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors, He parted the raging seas. My God, He holds a victory. Amen. There's joy in the house of the Lord, there's joy in the house of the Lord today. We shout out in your parade. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We'll shout out in your parade. we sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause he hung up on that cross, and he rose up from that grave. My God still rolls the stones away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. Amen. Let's sing this together. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Let's declare that. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. And we are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. Oh, 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 we shout out your praise.
Hey, welcome to Church at the Well. If you're just joining us, we are in a mini-series that we are calling Resilient. This idea of being able to, when we go through hard times, and hard times that seem to last for a long time, that we would be able to be resilient through them and after them. And maybe that for you is the pandemic that has gone on for a long time. It's been hard, or maybe it's something you've been through personally in the past, something you're going through now, something someone you love is going through. And we said last week when we talked about what resilience is, we can have this idea that resilience is just being able to get through something hard. But we said that's probably not enough, because maybe you've experienced this in your own life or you've met people like this. It's possible when you go through something hard to become someone hard at the end. And by that I mean someone who is hardened, someone who's cynical, someone who's bitter, someone who's angry, someone who's detached. And we all said, no, we don't want that in our lives. In fact, resilience, when we admire it in other people, when we meet people who've gone through hard things, what we admire about them is not just that they survived something, but that they have become more of a beautiful person. They've become more compassionate, more understanding. They're a good listener. They're honest. They're real. They have a humility about them. That's the aspect of resilience that we walk away from and think, man, I'd like to be more like that, right? If you meet someone who's gone through something hard, but they've become cynical and angry and bitter and detached, you don't go, oh, I wish I was like that. You want something more. You want to become someone. And so we said, yeah, resilience is not just getting through something hard, it's becoming someone new. We said we all need that. We all want that. We all want resilience. We just hate what it takes to get it, because it means you have to go through something hard. And I was thinking that one of the areas we most want and need resilience in is in the area of relationships. To be able to, in the relationships we have with the people close to us over a long period of time, when we go through something hard together, to become someone new and something new together. It's like, yeah, that sounds beautiful. But I think the reality is it seems to be getting harder and harder to be resilient in our relationships. And there may be lots of reasons for that, but I kind of came up with 3 isms that I think are working against us being resilient in relationships. The first ism is idealism. Idealism, in a sense, we live in a world that has romanticized relationships. And I don't just mean romantic relationships, although most certainly the world we live in, romantic comedies and all of that stuff have idealized romantic relationships that we will find the one. And when we do, we will fall in love and everything will be great and it'll be happily ever after. And all of the movies usually end right before the ever happily ever after. We just assume that's how it's going to be, but no one ever sees it. But that's what we're told. Or if it doesn't work out, we've even romanticized the idea of, we move on, we let go. Wasn't that fun? We had good times. We're still friends on Facebook. All of that. We can even romanticize the breakdown of long-term romantic relationships. But even the idea of family and we're going to get married and have a house and have 2.2 kids and we romanticize that and everything will be great. We are idealistic even about church. We say, this is a group of people because they love God, because it's a church, because it's a faith community. They will be gracious. They'll be loving. They will accept me. We'll agree on everything. We have the same beliefs. It's going to be perfect. Idealism is a big part of our Western 21st century mindset, and it's working against resilient relationships. Not just idealism, but individualism. Julie Beck, who's a senior editor and writer for The Atlantic, recently wrote an article called Love in the Time of Idealism. And she referenced 2 different psychologists and sociologists' books that they had written, and 2 different dynamics, both in terms of individualism that are working against good long-term relationships. She said, and she referenced one psychologist's book, Cheap Sex. He said, because of the availability of sex outside of marriage for everyone, whether it's even in real relationships or even in pornography, that people, men especially, are less likely to want to get married because they don't need to get married to have sex, and so they delay it or they avoid it, and so they're actually less likely to commit to long-term relationships. She said that's one dynamic, and the other dynamic, someone noted this idea of individualism even in our pursuit of marriage, that marriage has become just another arena for self-actualization. Like I get married in order to improve myself, in order to become my true self. If I find someone, it's someone who's going to help me become all that I was meant to be. And so there's an individualism primary lens that say even marriage and long-term relationships are about me. So not just idealism, but individualism, that the world is about me. And thirdly, tribalism. Maybe this one is a bit harder to understand. It's certainly not new, but tribalism is based on the idea that I need to and I can find my tribe. And my tribe is a well-defined circle of people, a group that I belong to, where there's a shared set of values, shared set of beliefs, shared set of sort of moral code, shared set of understanding and familiarity, and we are all the same. We have everything in common, people just like us, and we have our tribes. And sociologists note that tribalism is not new. We have always, in a sense, looked for that. Where is our place in the world? They said we actually get a good degree of peace and internal happiness when we find our tribe, which makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. But what they said is, when we live in a world that is defined by tribes and we look for that tribe, the more we find that group that is exactly like us, that identifies us, that agrees with us, where we have all the things, we think the same, we act the same, and we shared values, and yes, you're just like me, you think like me, the differences between people outside our tribe begin to be magnified. And if you add the technological revolution that we are living in, it is easier than ever to find people who are exactly like me, that agree with me. It's easier than ever to find my tribe. And what that has done is actually increase the sense of polarization or difference with people outside the tribe, people who don't think like me. And we can always find someone who does. And these 3 isms, I think, are killing our ability to be resilient, to stay and work through something hard in our relationships. Idealism says, I don't expect to encounter difficulty and conflict in my relationships. It shouldn't be there. I expect them to be good and easy. Individualism says, when I encounter something hard, I shouldn't have to put up with this. This is not making me happy. Idealism says I don't expect to. Individualism says when I do encounter it, I shouldn't have to go through something hard. And tribalism says I can always find someone who thinks like me. These things are actually working against our ability to stay and persevere through the difficulties that inevitably come up in long-term relationships. And yet, here's the truth. The resilience that we want, the very thing, the very situation, the very person, relationship we want to run away from may be, in fact, the very place that we are going to become more resilient people. Not just get through something hard together, but to become someone new. It's interesting when you read the scriptures. My youngest son, one of his friends wanted a Bible. His friend doesn't sort of have any kind of faith background and grew up in the church. And he gave him the Bible. And after a little while, he said to him, "Man, this Bible, they do some bad things." Like, I think he was expecting to read sort of a book of like very wonderful people and heroes. And he was noting just the relational chaos in this one character's life. And it's like, yeah, the Bible is very familiar with conflict and hard times in relationships, within marriage, within families, within friendships, and within communities of faith. The Bible is not unfamiliar. It is very real and saying this is inevitable in relationships of love, within marriages, within families, within friendship, and within the faith community. And yet, the Bible continues to echo this theme that in these very places of conflict holds the opportunity for us to become new people. Something that in recent months that has become sort of a regular fixture in my family's life is watching this mini-series called The Chosen. And it's one sort of writer's take on what it was like for this first community, or we call them disciples of Jesus, that were first being formed, really, and that became the first church. But this community of people who gathered around Jesus, chosen by Jesus to come into his inner circle, and what their lives must have been like. Now, some of the stories based on fact that we know from the gospel, the history writers. Some of it is based on the cultural context of the Greco-Roman first century Near East. And some of it is just this person's sort of creative license in saying what might it have been like in their worlds. One of the things that has stunned me as I've watched it is I should have known this, but I never realized how diverse, like this was not a tribe that Jesus was forming. They were a diverse group of people. And because of that, there would have been some friction and some conflict as they were trying to figure out how to do life together. And one of the most talked about episodes and scenes actually was when some of this conflict amongst them reached a head, particularly between Peter, one of Jesus' disciples who was Jewish, and Matthew, who was also Jewish, but Matthew was a tax collector whose life and profession had made life very hard for many other Jewish people. They were considered traitors. And I want you to watch this scene as some of this conflict, because of their differences, comes to a head in this group of Jesus followers, this group of disciples.
What about you?
What do you mean?
Has it been difficult for you all this time? The occupation, following Jewish law.
My life has not been easy.
Oh, it hasn't. What was more painful for you? Escaping Roman persecution by working for them, or escaping your guilt with all the money? And now you're catching up on Torah and wanting to follow the law. Why now all of a sudden? Why not all the other times you had the chance?
Simon?
No, John, I want to know. Mary had horrible trauma. She didn't choose all that happened to her. What's your excuse?
What do you want me to say? I don't know what you want from me.
An apology.
What?
Simon's not wrong. He could be more delicate about it, but you did choose to work for them. And you made my life even harder than it already was. And you haven't apologized.
No, don't say it. I don't want you to apologize. It doesn't matter. What would hearing him say sorry do? I won't forgive it anyway.
What keeps putting you in authority? Who are you to forgive or not to forgive?
What, you're on his side?
No, of course not, but you've had your problems too. What about apologizing for what you almost did to us with the Romans?
I didn't go through with it. I was trying to save my family's life, and I love you, John, but that's not something you have to worry about when Zeb and Salome are looking out for you. But you put me in a desperate position where I did things I would never have done otherwise. And I've repented for them. And John and James, I am sorry, but I didn't go through with it.
What is your excuse? I was a successful businessman, and yet I was always
He
behind.
wasn't your tax collector.
Quit defending him. I want an answer.
Hey, you're new.
Do you even know what it's like to be Jewish? To suffer for centuries and centuries because of it, but to still commit to it? To protect our heritage even though it never stops being painful, because the one comfort we have is to know that we're doing it together. That we're all suffering together. But if we just wait a little longer, if we hold tight just a little more, we'll have rescue, because we're chosen, all of us. And you betrayed that, and you spit on it. I can't forgive it. I'll never forgive it.
All right. You said what you needed to say. Sit down, Simon.
You sit down first.
Conflict within the community of faith would have been inevitable because of the types of people that Jesus was calling together. And in fact, in a few short years, by the time the first church was born after the death and resurrection of Jesus, the first community of Jesus followers, the first church, had exploded in diversity. And you had people from different ethnic backgrounds, different social classes, different parts of the region. Within this one community, within these New Testament, these new churches, you had tax collectors, people who were traitors to the Jewish people. You had zealots, people who were the patriots, who were against the traitors. You had Pharisees, very religious people, and then people who would have been sinners, people who didn't care about religion, but who had found and followed Jesus. You had Roman soldiers, you had fishermen, doctors, prostitutes, groups of people who otherwise never would have belonged together, who had come together, and therefore conflict, difference, friction was inevitable. It's actually why when you read some of the New Testament letters, the letters that sort of followed the history books in the New Testament, where the Apostle Paul and others are writing letters to churches, new churches, almost every letter at some point gets to addressing specific issues of conflict within the faith community. We're going to listen to one particular section of a letter written by one of Jesus' first sort of apostles and leaders of the church, the Apostle Paul, written to a community in what is now part of modern-day Turkey. And I want you to listen as he begins to lean in and address some of the lack of resilience they were having in their relationships. Have a listen.
But now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all of its wicked deeds. Put on your new nature, and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. Since God chose you to be the holy people He loves, you must clothe yourselves with tender-hearted, mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults, and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us together in perfect harmony. And let the peace that comes from Christ rule in our hearts. For as members of one body, we are called to live in peace and always be thankful.
This young church in the city of Colossae, the region of Colossae, which, as I said, is now part of modern-day Turkey, they were experiencing hard times with each other. We actually know if you go on in the letter, you'll find Paul getting into the dynamics of relationships in marriage, the dynamics of relationships between parents and children, the dynamics of people in the workplace, and just in general, relationships in the church. And this is actually not unique to this letter. We find it again and again. And it's interesting because the first half of this letter is all about what we'd call theology, truths about God and his love for us. And yet, so many of the letters eventually get to the very nitty gritty. Okay, what does that mean for your life? You know all this stuff about God, which, we can tend to sort of be like, being a Christian, being a follower of Jesus is about knowing things about God. Yes, there's lots of things to know, but there's lots of things to do as the things you know begin to change how you live. And he leans into these relationships. They were dealing with anger, frustration, conflict, unforgiveness, lack of grace, the sins and the brokenness and the failures of each other as they were jammed in together, life together in this community. And they were starting to experience conflict and frustration. And whether for them, but certainly for us now, as we have that same thing in relationships where we are in close proximity with others, in marriage, in family, and in our church, idealism, individualism, tribalism work against us. Idealism says, we shouldn't have to go through this. Individualism says, you don't have to put up with this. Isn't making you happy. Tribalism says, I'm sure we can find another person or another church. And the Apostle Paul to them and to us now says, no, don't give up. Don't walk away. But interestingly, you'll note in the text, he doesn't say, just get through it. Just grind your teeth, bite your tongue, don't say anything. What does he say? He says, put on your new nature, which is this whole thing about resilience. Become someone new. This is an opportunity for you to become someone new, this conflict you're having. And he uses the analogy of clothing. He says, strip off or get rid of all of this kind of rage and anger and gossip and slander and unforgiveness. Throw it off like an old garment and put on something new. Now, this would have meant something to them in our day where we have closets full of clothes. This idea maybe lacks its power. But there, as I said to you a few weeks ago, if you were the average person in the ancient Near East was not a wealthy person, and certainly in the community of Christ, we know most of the early followers of Jesus were people who were not wealthy. They probably only owned one piece of clothing. It was a tunic. It was what they wore next to their body. And maybe hopefully they had a cloak that they could cover themselves, especially at night if they had to sleep outdoors or in tents or whatever, it would get cold in the evening. But when church historians tell us that when people got baptized, they got given a new tunic. So they literally changed clothes. They were given a new, and this isn't just like, hey, they did it for the t-shirt, but probably then they might have done it for the t-shirt because that's what you got. No, I'm just kidding. But it was an entirely new piece of clothing. And it's like Paul saying, look down at what you're wearing. This new clothing that you got when you were baptized, when you became officially, publicly a follower of Jesus, why would you go back and get the old sort of probably dirty, probably moth-eaten, like one that you wore for too long? Like, no, you want to keep you have new clothes on. And he's using it metaphorically to say that's the same thing is true for you relationally. You're not meant to live in the old ways of slander, gossip, anger. Oh, you said this to me, I'm saying this to you. Oh, you said that, I'm cutting you off. Oh, unforgiveness. No, he says, put on the new person, the new way of living. And he goes on to give some examples of what those new clothes or what this new person looks like. And I used the NLT version today when we read it because it's just it captures one of the most important ideas with this that kind of digs at this issue of idealism. He says, make allowances for each other's faults. In other words, expect that there's going to be fault. Expect there's going to be sin. Expect there's going to be hurt. Expect the mess. Make room for each other's faults. Buffer. You know it's going to happen. Expect it. Don't be shocked. Don't let your idealism get crushed every time someone lets you down or says something that makes you feel, a little bit, did they mean that? Or that you get hurt. It happens in really. It's not okay, but you need to expect it. It's going to happen. You need to make room in this community for each other's faults. And when they come up, he says, forgive. Forgive. It is going to be easier to forgive if you expect that there's going to be something to forgive, right? If you're so idealistic about how people will treat you in your marriage, in your family, and certainly in the church, you're going to be shocked when something happens and they sin, when they fail you, when they let you down, when their insecurities or arrogance or pride or whatever gets in the way and hurts you. You're going to be shocked. You're not going to be thinking, he says, if you make room and expect it's going to happen, you will be more prepared to forgive because you know they are making room for your faults, because you know when you get in close proximity with someone, your issues, your stuff is going to affect them too. It's a shot to idealism. But then he says, above all, put on love. This is the clothing you wear, love. And love, remember we said, like when we did the series earlier in the new year, it's not just a feeling. It's not even primarily a feeling. It is about a choice to put the other person first, right? We said the opposite of love is not hate, it's pride. Arrogance or insecurity, it's all about me. Love is a shot to our individualistic perspectives that said the world and there's relationships and everything is about me and it's for me. Love says, no, it is primarily first about the other. And what does it mean to put them first and to think about them first and to serve them first and to put their needs ahead of yours? It is a shot to our individualistic mindset about relationships. Make room for each other's faults. And when you hurt each other, forgive. And above all, put on love that says, I'm going to put you first. Why? I mean, you kind of know this. You probably know intuitively, yeah, you should do this. Why? He says, because you are a holy people and you are a loved people. And both of those things need explanation. This whole encouragement to be resilient in relationships was based on the fact, he says, because you are a holy people and because you are a loved people. What does that mean? Holy. What is the word holy? We think, oh, because you're such a good person? Well, clearly that's not what it meant because they were not treating each other very well. That's not what the word holy means. Holy means you are unique, you are different. It actually means set apart or cut away. You are unique. You are meant to be a different kind of people. And one of the best analogies for me that I heard that I've never forgotten that helps me understand what this means. Craig Van Gelder, in his book about the mission of the church, says that he grew up in rural Iowa. He said in rural Iowa was all farming communities, and he said farmers are stuck in their ways. They have their equipment, they have their methodology, they have their process, and they don't deviate from it. But whenever there were new methodologies, new equipment, new ways of farming that the state wanted to teach the farmers, they didn't want to adopt it. So they would hire extension agents. And the extension agents would go into a given town, and what they would do is they would buy a piece of land right on the main road or main highway that was very visible to everybody else. And they would start to use the new implements, the new methodology, the new equipment in farming. And as people saw they were doing new stuff and the farmers drove by there every day and they would see the better results that plot of land was getting than their old ways, then they would start to change. That plot was called a demonstration plot. It was like a visible lab, a demonstration of what could be. That's what the church is meant to be. That's what it means that we are holy. It means that we are unique, that God is doing something new in us that grows something beautiful. Remember, resilience is about becoming someone new, becoming something beautiful that demonstrates to the rest of the world, oh, that's what relationships could be like. He says, you're holy. You're not meant to reflect to the world everything that everyone else already does. The world is full of division and conflict. Idealism, individualism, tribalism is ripping our world apart. And that was true then, and it's true now, everywhere. Friends, I believe so many of these things are even attacking the church. The church has become more tribalistic in these days. Oh, are you in this camp or that camp? Do you believe this thing or that thing? Are you for this group of people or against them? And it is dividing the church. And in a sense, the church just looks exactly the same as the world, driven by idealism, individualism, and tribalism. And the Apostle Paul says to them and us, no, you are different. You are meant to show the world where something beautiful grows in your life, and the rest of the world goes, oh, that's possible in a marriage? That's possible in a family? That's possible in a church? Yes. He says, you are a holy people. But secondly, and maybe most importantly, you are loved. You live this way because you are a loved people. Loved by who? By Jesus. And this isn't like, oh, Jesus loves you. It's like, no, the significance of the love of Jesus for you is not just that he loves you, but he shows us how to love, and he actually gives us his ability to love. This just kind of hit me between the eyes in a totally new way. In our last series, we were reading through the Gospel of Matthew, and in our daily readings, right, we were reading every chapter. We got to the end. And in this famous scene where Jesus is having what's has now been called the Last Supper with his disciples. and he's having a meal with them. And he's telling them that he's going to die. But even more than that, he comes out with something so difficult probably for him to say and them to hear. He said, when he's sitting with the 12 of them, one of you is going to betray me to my death. And when that happens, the rest of you are going to abandon me. He told them, this is what we are. These were his best friends. These were his family. He loved them. They loved him. They were in such a close community together. And he says, we're about to go through something really hard, and you are not going to stick around for it. He says, one of you is going to betray me to my death, and the rest of you, in my greatest hour, my greatest time of need, are going to abandon me. He had just told them that. And it probably was made worse by the fact that said, no, we'll never do that. And he said, no, you will. You will. It's going to happen. And right after he said that to them, I read this, and I've read it I don't know how many times. It just hit me so fresh. Right after he said, you're going to be unfaithful and unloving to me. And then he says to them, but here is a new covenant or a new promise of love and faithfulness to you. In response to your unfaithful, unloving friendship, I am making a new promise of love and faithfulness to you. And he said, I'm going to shed my blood in it. It's basically saying, this is a blood pact I'm making with you, not your blood, my blood. In response to their unfaithfulness and their unloving friendship, he made a new promise of faithfulness and love. It was Jesus doubling down. Friends, we don't know love like that. And it wasn't just saying, this is how much I love you, even though you are unfaithful and unloving to me, I am doubling down on my faithfulness to you. It wasn't just to express his love to them. It was because he knew when they left, when they abandoned and they realized what they've done, his love was making a bridge for them to come home. Because he would not waver in his love and faithfulness, because he made a new promise to them of love and faithfulness, they were able to repent and change and turn from their unfaithfulness and unlove and come home. Friends, that is an incredible kind of love. We don't really know a love like that, and we don't know how to love like that. So I just want to pause here, and the band's going to lead us in a song, maybe new to some of you. It's a song, and I was actually singing it a few weeks ago, and it just struck me in a new way right around the time I was reading this, that it says, I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs. And we can say, oh yes, Jesus, give me your love, love me, love me, love me, right? We're bottomless pits for love. Yes, beautiful. But in that moment, I realized, Jesus, I don't have that love in me for others. I don't love them like you love me. I need your love. I need to breathe it in so that I can breathe it out. I can't breathe out your love if I'm not breathing it in. It can't flow out of me like living water if it's not flowing into me. I need your love if I'm going to love the people around me. And so just pause and use this moment and saying, yeah, Jesus, I need a love that can double down like that, even when others have been unfaithful and unloving to me in my marriage, in my family, in the church. So let's just pause and try to breathe this in and drink it in.
Like the rushing wind, would you breathe within my heart? Through the raging storm, would you hold me in your arms? 'Cause I need you. How I need you. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like fire. your heart. To your heart. Through the winds and rain, I can hear you call my name. When the nights get rough, I will still sing out your praise. 'Cause I need you. How I need you. I need you. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer to your heart. Your heart. Your heart. You're closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything, closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer to your heart. Your heart. Your heart. It's where I wanna be forever. I just wanna be in your heart. Your heart. Your heart. We sing in death and in life. In death, in life, I'm confident, covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid. My debt is paid. There is nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. We sing together, 'cause I need you. How I need you. Oh God, I need you. How I need you. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over. Jesus, draw me closer your heart. To your heart.
If you've been a part of the Well for any length of time, you know that almost every message at the end of our teaching time, I give you a next step to consider. Usually something small, try this, read this, watch this, do this. Today I just felt challenged to invite you into something big and bold to do. To say to you, today is the day to double down on your commitment to love. And I put a blank there. Today is the day to double down on your commitment to love. And I want to ask you, who? Who in your life is someone to whom you need to double down on your commitment, to make a new promise like Jesus did, even for someone who has been unfaithful or unloving or frustrating to you? And that may be someone you're married to. It may be a parent, or maybe a child, maybe someone in the faith community, someone in the church where your relationship has been strained, or you've been frustrated by how they've treated you or how they've not treated you, things they've said, things they haven't said, things they've done. And you have been tempted to shrink back and say, fine, if that's how you're going to be, okay, I'm just going to take a step back, or I'm going to walk away, or I'm going to give up, or I'm not going to give as much. And today I want to challenge you, no, go the other direction, double down. What would it mean to increase your love, increase your grace, increase your sense of wanting to put them first, increase your willingness to forgive them, to serve them, to pray for them, to bless them? And I want you to encourage you, if you've identified who that person is, to write it out. Like, write out, this is my promise to you. And you may not give it to them, although if you wanted to, that would be even greater. But just to say to them this, and be specific, this and this and this is what it looks like for me to increase, to double down, to make a new promise of love and faithfulness to you. This isn't easy. This isn't natural. We all know we should. I didn't tell you anything today, probably you didn't already know. But it's something we are invited to do. It is the way the world begins to see something different in us, and it comes from the love of Christ for us. Trevor Noah in his book, Born a Crime, and Nelson Mandela in his book, A Long Walk to Freedom, both write about their experiences growing up in South Africa. Now, they're separated by many decades, and they're very different types of people. But interestingly, in both books, both of them ask this question: how was it possible that a very small minority of white settlers were able to oppress a large majority of the black population, a large black population in South Africa? The black population of South Africa far outnumbered the small minority of white settlers. How was it possible that they were able to subjugate and control and oppress them for so many years? And both of them in their books come up with one of the same answers: division. Mandela and Noah both note how the white settlers took tribalism, the unique differences of each of the tribes, and accentuated them, segmented them, separated them geographically, but psychologically, sociologically, culturally, under the guise of, we are celebrating your unique differences between you. But they pushed and pressed tribalism in every way they could in order to divide and keep these different groups of people from coming together and rising up against their oppressors. It was division. Friends, when you and I choose to double down in our love relationships, when we double down in our marriages, when we double down in our family relationships, we double down in our church family and say, no, I am increasing my commitment of love and faithfulness to you. We show each other and the world something that is stronger than division, something that is better.
How between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. Thank you, Lord. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Let's sing it together again, church. Came the morning, came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me.
Hey, well, as we wrap up the service today, I want to just leave you with a few quick announcements before we let you go on with the rest of your day. First off, as I said at the start of our service, we're so excited to say that we are finally once again meeting in person in all 3 of our sites. Bolton at 9:30 a.m. on Sundays, Vaughan at 11 a.m., and King City at 4 p.m. So if you're part of any one of our sites and you're able, I would love to invite you to join us in person on Sundays moving forward. If you're new to our church over the last year and a bit and you've never come out in person, I want to invite you, and we'd love to meet you in person, get to know you, and share with you about how you can continue to get plugged in and more connected into our community here at The Well. And of course, we're not going to be doing away with our online services as well. And so if you're not able to join us in person yet, for whatever reason, you can continue to join us here on live or online each week on Sunday mornings for our worship services. Also want to let you know about a couple just beautiful opportunities that we have for you to grow. And it might be a great next step for you, wherever you might be in your spiritual journey. Baptism and membership. Baptism, if I could put it simply, is simply a way of marking the beginning of our faith journey with Jesus. It's actually a beautiful way that we've been given by God to kind of say a public yes to all that Jesus has done for us, and saying a yes that we want to follow him with our whole lives as well. And so if you want to find out a little bit more about what baptism is and if it might be a good next step for you in your journey of faith, I'd love to have you join us for our kind of understanding baptism class that we're having on Monday, June 28 at 7 p.m. It's going to be on Zoom. You should see the Zoom link on your screen right now. And we'd love for you to come and find out a little bit more about what baptism is and if it might be a great next step for you. Also want to let you know about our membership class coming up. And simply, membership is actually a beautiful way to say yes, not only to Jesus, but to all that Jesus is doing in our local community here at The Well. It's saying a yes for everyone to know that you want to be someone who's committed and connected and a living, breathing part of The Well, someone who is making our church a little bit more like Jesus himself. And someone who's saying, yes, I want our church to make me a little bit more like Jesus too. And so if you want to find out a little bit more about what membership is, we'd love to invite you to our membership class coming up on Monday, June 21 at 7:30 p.m. It's also going to be online on Zoom. You can see the link on your screen. You can find out more about membership and about whether that might be a next step for you as well. Love you to join either one of those if it may be a fit for you. With that said, I simply want to leave you today with a blessing of courage. Courage, not simply to take to heart what was said today, but courage to take action. Maybe in a difficult relationship that is part of your life. This is a word that we've heard today that we need not simply to know or to agree with, but to act on. And so may the Spirit of God fill you with courage to act in the way that he might be leading you to. Thanks so much for joining us today, friends. God bless you. Have a great day.